The crunchy nuts on. You want to go. Hi everyone, welcome to this week's recipe. This week I'm going to show you guys how to make carrot cake. This was one of my brother's favorite cakes and it's his birthday this week, and so I want to share my recipe with you guys. So let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is line our cake pans. So this is going to ensure that the cake comes out. So I like to cut within the circle that I drew. But if you get a little bit of the ink, that's totally fine. You can flip it over, making sure the ink side is on the bottom. Pans are lined. Now I have some carrots here. I'm just gonna go ahead and peel them. About 3 cups of grated carrot. So when we're grating it, we want to use the big part, the big grate. Okay, so once our carrots are grated, we're going to set that to the side. Now I have a big old bowl. To this, I'm going to add 2 cups of white sugar, 1 cup of a neutral oil. I'm just using canola. You could even use olive oil. Just know that it'll taste kind of like an olive oil cake. A tablespoon of vanilla. And 4 eggs. And now we're gonna whisk this together. You wanna just kind of beat it for like a minute. So once you have your eggs, your sugar, your vanilla, and your oil mixed together, keep that to the side. Now we're gonna measure out our dry. So I want 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And whenever I'm measuring out flour, I like to kind of fluff the flour up in the container and scoop it into my cup, my measurement. And that way I can level off the top so that it's nice and clean, and then pour it in. To that, I'm gonna add 2 teaspoons of baking soda, 2 teaspoons baking powder, 1 teaspoon kosher salt, 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, and I have these beautiful nutmeg. We want about a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Crazy about nutmeg, but I do like the subtle flavor it gives, so I'm gonna put just a little bit. So that's for our dry. We're just gonna give it a stir. Back to our egg mixture. All we're gonna do is just throw all of the flour, our flour mixture, right into our wet. We're gonna just whisk that together. Throw in my carrots. So the carrots and the oil in this cake really makes it so moist. Now, we can also add, some people add pecans to theirs. I actually like walnuts. So I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of walnuts right in. You can go as much as like a cup. I just like a little bit of nuts in my cake, and then I like to have the crunchy nuts on the outside because we're gonna candy the walnuts. And I like it because of the texture. So we're just gonna scoop and fold, making sure these carrots are completely mixed in. And look at that. We don't have to worry about being super gentle because, you know, it's not like we have a meringue or egg whites in it. We just want it all really mixed in. And now we can bake it. That's all there is to this cake batter. It's almost like a muffin, really. Yes, that's delicious. I don't know if you know, but I do love my little Pam spray. So you want to divide it as evenly as possible to the 2 pans. I'm gonna go cup for cup for each one to make sure they're nice and even. And we're gonna bake it at 350 degrees for about 30 minutes. You're gonna check it but it's probably gonna take anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes. So while we wait for our cake to bake, we're gonna candy some nuts. So in a little pot, I'm gonna add a half a cup of sugar, a half a cup of water, and 1 cup of walnuts. We're gonna let that boil, and what that's gonna do is the syrup's gonna really concentrate and hug onto the walnuts. And I will strain the syrup away from the walnuts, leaving just a nice coat of sugar on the walnuts. And then we're gonna toast it. We're gonna bake it in the oven with a pinch of salt. And this is going to candy it and make it really nice and crunchy on the outside and kind of creamy on the inside. So now that our walnuts have been cooking for about 5 minutes, now I'm gonna give it a nice stir. I'm gonna stir this just so that you know a nice layer of sugar is coated on that walnut. And at some of the fancy restaurants I worked at, like this is how we candied all the nuts. And so I'm gonna drain it. You can save that syrup, this walnut syrup, for some cocktails. I feel like that would be really good in a tiki drink. And I have a sheet tray here that I'm going to just lay all of my walnuts on. Spread it all out. And then we're gonna do a little pinch of salt. So after 8 minutes, our nuts should be nice and toasted. I'm gonna put that to the side. So while we wait for our cake to finish baking, we're going to make our icing. So I have 1 stick of butter, 1 block of cream cheese. To this, I'm going to add 4 cups of confectioner's sugar. And I got it in a bag, and I opened the bag recently. So my confectioner's sugar is a little clumpy. So I'm just taking the time, and I'm gonna sift it so that it's nice and clump free, so that when I make my icing, it's not gonna be too lumpy. Now, if you're getting it straight from the box, you probably won't have to do this. So now that our powdered sugar is sifted, I'm gonna add my vanilla later, but I'm gonna start mixing it up slowly. Go slow so you don't wear your powdered sugar. I'm gonna add my teaspoon of vanilla now. Now I'm going to beat this until it's nice and fluffy. So like, it's important you get it all mixed together. Then you add your vanilla if you want to add vanilla, and then you can beat this until it's nice and fluffy and creamy and lump free. And look at that. It's gonna be a nice fluffy but firm cream cheese icing or frosting. And the salty butter, you don't really taste how salty it is. It just makes it way more balanced. So we're gonna keep this at room temp until our cake is completely cooled. So here's my first layer of cake. We're gonna start icing it. So I'm just gonna give it a nice scoop of icing. And I'm not gonna do it with I usually have like a cake stand that spins, but I know that not everyone has that, so I wanted to just do a simple icing technique. I have my first layer here, and then I have my second layer, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip it over like that, and I'm gonna put the less attractive side, which is always the top, I feel, right on top of it, so that this side, the bottom side, is actually ending up to be on the top. But I'm gonna just put a little bit of icing all around. I like to smear it. So when you go to put your icing on, you want to go back and forth motions. Otherwise, you're going to get crumb everywhere. So back and forth, and you know, you can keep it very simple like this, like just a top layer, nothing on the sides. But I like to just kind of have that light icing on the side effect. So I like to make sure I have enough on top. The top needs to be covered, in my opinion. You know, it makes it a lot prettier, but I like to kind of smoothen it out. It does not have, I don't think it should be perfect. I think that there's a beauty in imperfect cakes now. I think I'll do it this way. So with a back and forth motion, I'm gonna go back and forth with my icing. I like to be able to see the cake on the side like that. But you wanna seal. There's a reason why we wanna seal the sides of the cake, and it's to lock that moisture in. We don't want the air, like the cake, to be super exposed, because it'll dry it out. So that's our preliminary iced cake. Now I'm gonna take a little bench scraper, and I'm just going to pull it to the side, and I'm just gonna rotate my cake as I lay it just flat onto the side of the cake. What's that? That's going to basically make the side of the cake nice and kind of perfect, very straight, which is great. And it's going to pull the icing to the rim of the cake, which is what I like. And so if you want something a little bit more drastic than this, you can. And you're going to kind of smoothen out the cake so that it goes almost off of the cake. So you smoothen it out, and you kind of spread it away off of the cake so it's a little wider on the top. So then when you go to smoothen it out, it kind of pulls or like gathers at the edge of the cake. And then for a more dramatic effect, we're going to take this and we're going to just spin it around. And you'll see it starts to gather and pull on the edge of the cake. And it almost creates like a border. If you want, like, you see how it's nice and kind of thick on these edges, that's great. If you want it to pool a little bit more on one side, all you have to do is kind of lay a little extra right on top. Hey Google, stop. So you can pull it on the top, oops, and then go back and wipe it off. And then there you have it. I just love how that looks. So I have our walnuts here, and I'm just gonna take a little handful at a time and kind of lay them onto the sides. Start with a little, Don't go too crazy and let them stick. So here you have it, guys. My carrot cake. It doesn't look like carrots, but I do have some Easter robin eggs on top, and I hope you guys enjoy. Look at that. Nice and fluffy. Nice and moist. Really, it's all about the cake. I hope you guys enjoy. I wasn't going to cut this cake because it was for my brother's birthday, but my mom said I could. She said that we're only going to give him a slice and so we can eat the rest. But cheers, everyone. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Bye.